He always impressed me as being concerned about trying to help solve world problems.
He was a very capable young man. There's a kind of a paucity of specificity when it comes to relaying any anecdotes or something, because his work was always so well done.
Was a quick learner. He picked up very, very fast on television, and his presence in front of the camera was always something that I admired.
From the very beginning, people knew he was special. Thomas John Brokaw, born on February 6, 1940, in the small town of Webster, South Dakota, located in the northeast area of the state. In 1955, Tom's family moved to Yankton, South Dakota, into this house found on the northern edge of town. Here, Tom finished his last 3 years of his secondary education at Yankton High School and graduated in 1958. Following graduation, Tom chose the University of South Dakota in Vermillion to further his education, with thoughts of becoming a lawyer. However, his admiration for Chet Huntley and David Brinkley prompted him to shift his attention to broadcast journalism. Tom's mentor and professor, Dr. Bill Farber, on Tom Brokaw, the scholar.
Tom had that spark that you could see almost from the very beginning, a desire to succeed and a concern, a commitment to try to do something in this world that was be worth doing. He's the kind of person that wanted to make a difference.
Tom had that spark, and he knew it early on. After an awards banquet for A students, Tom made this comment to Dr. Farber.
You ought to have an award for the C students that show the most promise. He said it's all right to give these A students, but he said, I'm going to do better than they are. And he says, I'll prove it to you.
Throughout Tom's college days, he worked as a roving reporter for several radio stations in the university area. He also worked part-time at KTIV TV in Sioux City, Iowa, as a booth announcer, where he really got acquainted to the life of a television station.
I was program director at the station when Tom and his mother came in. He was looking for some part-time work while he was going to the University of South Dakota at Vermillion, and of course his talent was so outstanding that there was no hesitancy at all in offering him a somewhat minor position as booth announcer.
Tom did do a wonderful job as booth announcer. However, one night something demanded his immediate attention.
When he had to take a live commercial, he had to set the microphones in the audio booth and then get down in the studio and take the commercial. And our news director at that time took the break, saying, we'll have more news after this word from our sponsor. And the camera, nobody seemed to know that he hadn't shown up there. The camera panned over to his commercial spot, and there was the microphone hanging loosely with no one in attendance. And so the news continued, and I asked the next day what had happened. And he had had an urgent call with which he was unable to cope. And I suggested it would be nice if he could somehow arrange to schedule those moments a little bit better. But there was no big issue made of it. But he did miss the commercial. I hope he made it in time.
Tom made it through that experience and many more, eventually graduating in 1962 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. However, Tom's degree is dated 1964.
Well, he was working on his paper with Dr. Hobby in international relations, and I know it must have been on a fairly deep subject, and he did have a little difficulty and delay in getting it completed.
Shortly after graduation, Tom married Meredith All on August 17, 1962. Meredith, a Yankton native and Miss South Dakota in 1959, keeps busy these days with her 2 toy emporiums called Penny Whistle on Manhattan's East Side. Tom and Meredith have 3 children, Jennifer, Andrea, and Sarah. With little experience and desperate for a job, Tom and his new wife traveled to Omaha for an interview at KMTV, the NBC affiliate in Omaha. Tom literally begged for a job, and Mark Gutierre took a big chance on Tom and hired him as a newscaster and morning news editor. Mark offered Tom $90 per week. However, Tom felt he needed more money and negotiated for $100 a week, which is where he started. Tom says to this day that he learned to do everything at KMTV. Dave Hamer remembers trying to teach Tom how to shoot film.
Tom was a pretty good writer from the start, and Mark really worked with him and polished his style, and well, obviously he is a very good writer. On the photography side, well, there were some problems. Tom never really adapted to the camera. I guess maybe Mark did a better job training him than I did. We worked with film in those days with the old Bell and Howell right here. And it was a temperamental thing, and you did a lot of guesswork. You had to guess the distance and set the lens for that. You had to guess the exposure and set the aperture for that, and blast away 2.5 minutes of film on a run. And I don't think Tom ever really picked up on that. That was maybe too confining for him, but he was a darn good writer and had good presence on camera.
Another step in Tom's learning process at KMTV was from Mark Gutierre, who helped Tom write proper copy. Mark and Tom co-wrote this stand-up in front of Central High School, Tom's very first stand-up.
These students going up the steps of Omaha Central High School are only a small part of the some 85,000 young people jamming into Omaha's public and parochial classrooms this fall. Many of them have mixed emotions about going to school, from the tiniest kindergartner, who's a little overwhelmed, to the senior facing his final year.
Tom proved himself as a reporter and received the position to do the morning cut-ins during the Today Show, not realizing that he would eventually be a host of the show in just 14 years. However, Tom was uncertain about his future, and he desperately wanted to further his education and enter graduate school. Dated April 21st, 1964, Tom wrote this letter to his old mentor with his decision.
I want to thank you for your analysis of my proposed enrollment in graduate school. That's the type of information I needed to help me with my decision. And here is the decision. I've decided to stay another year in Omaha and then hopefully strike out in a new direction in 1965. Frankly, my decision is based on new developments at work. Just as I thought I was standing still, a dangerous situation in this business, they gave me added responsibility and a $25 a week raise. The extra money and responsibilities are not enough to convince me that I want to make local newscasting my life's work. But at my age, the training is invaluable.
So, with that $25 raise, Tom stayed at KMTV for about another year until he joined WSB-TV, the NBC affiliate in Atlanta. Dave Hamer remembers Tom's last day.
When Tom left KMTV to go to WSB in Atlanta, he made the rounds to say goodbye to everybody on the staff last day on the job. And he wandered into the executive suite, and one of the executives there, who shall remain nameless, shook his hand, patted him on the back, and said, "Tom, it's a fast train, don't fall off." I'd say that there was never any danger of Tom falling off the train. Hell, he was driving the train.
Tom joined WSB in 1965 as an editor and anchorman of the 11 o'clock nightly news. After about a year, Tom's career train started to pick up speed. His stay at WSB was short-lived, as he moved on to the network's owned and operated station in Los Angeles, KNBC, in 1966. Tom's biggest jump probably occurred when he had the chance to become NBC's White House correspondent. The train Tom was riding had finally reached full speed. As White House correspondent, Tom also was assigned to gubernatorial elections, anchored the Saturday edition of NBC Nightly News, and in the summer of 1976, he was a floor reporter at both the Democratic and Republican conventions. Later that year, Tom became a co-host of NBC's Today Show. Tom stayed for 5 years and represented NBC in many different network specials. In 1982, Tom became a co-anchor of NBC Nightly News. And in 1983, he was named the show's sole anchor, the position he holds today. From the earliest days in Vermilion, Sioux City, and Omaha to where he is today, Tom continues to make a great impression upon the world. The Nebraska Broadcasters Association is proud to recognize Tom Brokaw in the Hall of Fame.